Welcome to another explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because, well, we're going to deconstruct a concept that literally flips traditional business logic completely on its head. You know the story of the ugly duckling, right? That messy, kind of awkward bird that eventually blooms into a beautiful swan? Well, it turns out that is actually an incredible blueprint for building a massive, highly profitable software business. Today, we're looking at some fascinating source material that explores what's called the ugly duckling strategy and how founders use it to build a minimal lovable product. It's an absolutely game-changing approach to getting your next big idea off the ground. $230,000 in annual recurring revenue. Just let that sink in for a second. We're not talking about a one-time launch spike here. This is steady, dependable, compounding cash flow year after year. And this is exactly what happens when an ugly, messy, half-built product is allowed to evolve through real customer feedback into something people genuinely love and, frankly, rely on. Okay, let's dive into this because how they actually got to that massive revenue number, that's the truly mind-blowing part. They didn't use any of that traditional startup magic. I'm talking zero venture capital funding, absolutely no paid ads, no massive coordinated viral launch on sites like Product Hunt. The entire operation was run by just a two-person team, and yet they still managed to secure 800 paying customers. It completely shatters this myth that you need a huge team and a giant marketing budget to win. Section 1. The Supergrow Pivot Story. So to really understand how this strategy works, we need to look at a real-world case study. This is the story of a founder named Devon and an incredible pivot that turned what was basically a devastating platform failure into a massive opportunity. See, Devon originally built an app called Honeypot, which relied entirely on Twitter. But then, Twitter changed their roles and completely killed his API access. They essentially cut off the digital bridge his app needed to function, so his product was just dead overnight. Now, most founders, they'd panic, complain, or probably just quit. But Devon asked a much better question. Where did this breakage actually expose a gap? He looked around and noticed that LinkedIn was absolutely exploding for solo founders, but the tools to help them build their personal brand on there, they were clunky, scattered, and just really slow. So, in April 2023, he launched Supergrow. And he didn't wait for it to be perfect. He launched it as a total ugly duckling, imperfect, filled with bugs, but just useful enough to solve one really painful problem. Section 2. MVP versus MMP. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophical shift of our explainer today. It's all about the transition from launching a basic MVP to building an MLP. This is where the magic really happens. Look, we've all heard of a minimum viable product, or MVP, right? When you launch an MVP, you're really just asking, does it work? You put out something messy just to get initial feedback. But an MVP, that's only the starting line. The actual goal is to reach a minimum lovable product, an MLP. The question there completely changes. You stop asking if it works, and you start asking, would they miss it? Like, if you unplugged your business tomorrow, would your customers actually feel pain? That is a radically higher bar, and honestly, it's the absolute secret to unstoppable word-of-mouth growth. Section 3. Turning feedback into love. So how do you actually cross that chasm? How do you take a rough, buggy first draft and turn it into a product that your users aggressively share with their friends? Well, it is all about the feedback loop. Here is Devon's exact growth flywheel. Step 1, launch ugly. Step 2, build in public. Devon shared absolutely everything on Twitter. His wins, his struggles, and yes, his messy early product. And by doing that, he earned trust before the product was even finished. In fact, his very first annual plan was bought by a follower who was literally just watching him build it. Step 3, you fix the friction. You carefully watch what users ignore, what makes them quit, and then you refine it. You have to treat your early users like co-builders. And finally, step 4, that trust and constant iteration turn into pure word of mouth. People fiercely support the things that they help shape. But there's a pretty massive trap here, guys. When you start getting feedback, people are going to ask for everything. If Devon had just blindly added every single feature people requested, Supergrow would have died a really messy, bloated death. Instead, he stayed fiercely focused on one single job, helping everyday founders build their LinkedIn presence using AI without burning 3 hours a day. That's it. When a product does one thing perfectly, the customer immediately understands, oh, this was built for me. And that kind of clarity, that's exactly what makes a product shareable. Section 4, building with AI. Now, right about now, you might be thinking, okay, that's great for a software engineer like Devon, but I can't write code. Well, the game has completely changed. Today, you literally have an AI co-founder that can replicate this exact playbook for you. Let's look at a tool called Buildy.ai. It's amazing to see how incredibly simple it is to kick off an entire business now. This right here is a real prompt you can give to Buildy. You literally just speak to it conversationally, like, I want to build a new business designed for solo founders to help them brainstorm content for LinkedIn using AI. You don't need to write code, you don't need to hire an expensive agency, you just tell the AI your vision, and it literally just starts building. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer, overwhelming scope of what an AI agent can do for a solo founder today, especially if you don't have a team or a big budget. I mean, look at this. Buildy will generate your brand name. It will write and design a highly persuasive, conversion-optimized, long-form sales page. It handles the actual development, too, building the app itself, the payment infrastructure, the whole onboarding flow. It even runs your market research. It's kind of like having an entire C-suite and a full development team just living right inside your laptop. And the crazy part is it's not just an order taker. It actually acts as a strategic partner. For example, when asked about pricing, Buildy advised charging between $20 and $40 a month. It understands market psychology. It knows that that specific price point is low enough to be a total no-brainer, so you get early feedback, but it's still high enough to signal real value. Think about that. This AI is actually coaching you on your go-to-market strategy to make sure you get those critical first users through the door. And that partnership, it doesn't just end on launch day. Buildy acts as a continuous growth engine for you. It'll draft targeted LinkedIn carousels to help drive free organic traffic. It'll write out your email nurture sequences. It'll even design follow-ups that are engineered specifically to trigger word-of-mouth sharing. And most importantly, as your customers start complaining, and they will, and giving you feedback on your ugly duckling, you just feed that back into Buildy, and it will iterate and fix the code for you. It becomes this amazing, continuous loop of improvement. Section 5. Launch your ugly duckling. So the crucial point is that getting a product out the door that just barely works, that is only step one. It's the starting line, not the finish line. We've covered the mindset, the pivot, the strategy, and the tools. But please do not wait for everything to look perfect. Launch the messy version. Offer discounts, let people in for free. Honestly, do whatever it takes to get real humans using it. And then you just have to brace yourself for the complaints. But let them show you what actually matters, because their feedback is the exact fuel that takes you from merely viable to truly lovable. At every single stage of your journey, you have to continually challenge yourself with this one question. Not, does the button work, but would someone actually love this product? Would they tell a friend about it? If you shut down your servers tomorrow, would they actively be upset because it became an indispensable part of their daily workflow? You've got to keep tweaking, keep polishing through the frustrating, boring parts of building until the answer to that question is a resounding yes. So, I want to leave you with this final thought. The only thing standing between you and a compounding, word-of-mouth-driven business is your willingness to be just a little bit embarrassed by your first draft. So stop waiting for perfection, stop hiding your ideas from the world. What ugly duckling will you launch today? Just get it out there, let your customers teach it how to fly, and I will see you in the next explainer.